BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. This time, thousands of farmers who thought they'd lost access to government environmental payments because the scheme closed before they could complete their applications online could get their money after all.
They did say within the actual scheme rules that they would give 6 weeks notice before they closed the application window. Obviously, there was not 6 weeks, there was nothing. The main reason we hadn't submitted the application is that we were just very busy doing the farming.
We'll have more on that a little later. First, though, today, testing topsoils is often done to measure nutrients and organic matter, but recording what lies at a much lower depth could be key to enhancing soil health and help achieve agriculture's net zero targets. At CAFRE, Northern Ireland's College of Agriculture, Food and Rural Enterprise, a major deep soil carbon coring project has been underway, taking samples from a metre down across 1,200 hectares of active agricultural land. Helen Mark met CAFRE senior technologist Elizabeth Earle in a field near the college's dairy unit to find out more.
The cows coming in for milking just behind us.
They are. I love that slow saunter they have across the field.
Yeah.
That's a herd of
Holstein. Part of my work area in CAFRE was delivering a large-scale soil carbon coring project. When you're sampling 1 metre into the soil, you have to start thinking about where is drainage pipes? Where does our mains electric run through our fields? Where does our water drinker pipes run? And
that's not always on the map.
No, not always on the map. Some fields you were relying on historic information and hoping it was still correct today.
And you've got some of the tubes here. Can we open one of them up, Elizabeth, to see? So this is a hard plastic container. Oh, it's got an inner tube which you slide out.
Yeah.
How is it inserted into the ground?
The AgriCarbon have a specialised machine. They are able to get this tube drilled down into the ground, and once they hit their depth, they take the tube out of the drill, seal it and send it away for analysis.
It's lovely to open up a few of these cores and see into the earth beneath our feet in a way that we would not normally be able to do.
Yeah.
But the question is, why?
By sampling down to 1 metre depth within our soils, we're able to capture a really good picture as to what our total carbon stocks are at depth and understand how historic practices at CAFRE have influenced our current carbon stocks, not just in the top 15 centimetres or in the top 30, but further down into the soil profile. One of the key aims of this project is not only to deliver a baseline of soil carbon stocks, but also to provide a data set and technical information to support farmers and students even in our educational programmes to learn about how to protect and manage and enhance carbon within their farms. We covered 1,200 hectares of land from the dairy, beef and sheep farms here in Antrim to Glenwerry, our hill farm, which is 1,000 feet above sea level. We also sampled at Lochry, which is an arable farm, and also at Inniskillen, which is our equine facility. We took cores right from the base of our hedgerows, and we took plots within each of the woodlands. We also sampled some of our agroforestry and our riparian margins within our arable fields, where we have multi-species, we have rough grass margins, and we also have flowering margins. It's one of the areas that we're quite keen to see what those results yield back for us. Just where is our carbon sitting?
Will the results of these deep core samples inform future land use?
Yes, so the results from this project will help to shape future land management practices at CAFRE and will help CAFRE on its journey to 50% carbon neutrality by 2030, which is a key target within our college estate strategy. But it will also help to shape knowledge exchange programmes which will feed out into farmer sustainability development groups and help them then adopt and change practices across the industry.
Elizabeth Earle from CAFRE in Northern Ireland. In a moment, we'll be talking about the latest change to the Sustainable Farming Incentive, or SFI, a government scheme which pays farmers for environmental work. But first, our theme on Farming Today this week is grass. And in the second of our features, we've been to meet a farmer who is stuck in the SFI system. Dairy farmer Sarah Godwin had planned to plant a mixture of grasses enriched with legumes and other species called a herbal ley, paid for by the SFI. But the scheme was abruptly closed in March before her application was complete. She said the farm, which has 300 milking cows, had spent more than £1,000 on agents' fees to help with the forms. Rebecca Rooney visited Middle Hill Farm near Chippenham.
We're walking past the rows of dairy cows that have not long been milked, and there's that very distinctive smell.
Yeah, so we've just finished cutting our first cut grass silage, which is up here. We're just going up a nice steep ramp, looking at a clamp full of grass. The silage mainly comes from the grass leys that we plant specifically for that purpose, mainly Italian ryegrass.
And what do you like about the Italian ryegrass?
It's really high yielding, it's vigorous, don't get any problems establishing it.
You were hoping to move away from Italian ryegrass.
Yeah, potentially we were hoping to put an SFI application in, moving away from Italian ryegrass and looking at the herbal leys, which would improve our soil health, increase biodiversity. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that this year anymore. As you can see already, although we're only just at the beginning of May, the grass is already suffering from a lack of rainfall that we've had.
Because the girls came up to say hello, but they're busy munching, but the grass is looking quite short.
It is, yes, unfortunately. We're on Cotswold Brash here in North Wiltshire, which basically means that we've got only about 4 inches of topsoil. We're so free draining. The soil doesn't hold that moisture, and so we do buffer feed the cows through the summer just because we can't produce enough grass.
Hence the silage.
Exactly, yeah. So our plans were to establish the herbal leys. Quite a significant part of that for us was drought resistance. What these herbal leys are supposed to offer, a different mix of species, some with a kind of deeper root structure, helping to improve the soil structure across all our fields. And also there are legumes within those mixtures as well, which would help to fix the nitrogen out of the air and helping you to reduce the use of inorganic fertiliser on our permanent pasture. But yeah, unfortunately, they closed the window before we could make the application. So we've got a situation where we've paid an agent to put the application together. It was just undergoing its final checks, and they, without any warning, closed the window for applications.
What was your reaction when you learnt that the applications had closed?
Just disbelief, I think. Because it just came so out of the blue, we just couldn't quite believe it. And we were, cross with ourselves that we hadn't, and actually the main reason we hadn't submitted the application is that we were just very busy doing the farming.
And the government said, it was a finite pot of money. It wasn't limitless. That's why they had to halt the applications, and that it was a sign that they'd been really successful, that there was very good uptake.
No, I'm sure there has been good uptake. I just wish that they had been a little bit more open and transparent. They did say within the actual scheme rules that they would give 6 weeks notice before they closed the application window. Obviously, there was not 6 weeks, there was nothing.
If the herbal leys would benefit the soil structure on the farm and the water retention, why don't you just do it anyway? Why wait for the SFI?
Well, there is a cost to doing it. You've got the cost of establishing the leys, especially within the permanent pastures. And also there is an element of risk in doing that.
Do you think you'll do it anyway? What are you going to do?
It's not something we're going to be doing this year now.
Dairy farmer Sarah Godwin. Well, Sarah could be one of the people affected by a change announced by the government yesterday. DEFRA says an error was made when closing the sustainable farming incentive to new applications earlier this year, and people who had already started but not finished their applications at that point could now be allowed to complete them. The Sustainable Farming Incentive, or SFI, is part of the new system of farming payments in England, replacing the EU's Common Agricultural Policy. It pays people to do things like grow cover crops, plant flowers for pollinators, and manage hedgerows on their land. But in March this year, the government announced with no warning that the SFI would be closed to new applications. Producer Heather Simons joins me now. So Heather, what has happened?
Well, a bit of background first. The SFI was an uncapped scheme aimed at getting as many farmers involved as possible. But the budget was finite, and essentially that budget ran out and the scheme was closed to new applications. At the time, the farming minister, Daniel Zeichner, said it was a success because it showed how popular the scheme had been. But lots of farmers were shocked, and many felt pretty angry about the sudden decision, particularly those people who had started online SFI applications, who might have put lots of work in and often invested money in agents to help, but had not yet hit the submit button when the scheme was then cancelled. It's that group that could now be allowed to submit their applications after all.
So why?
Well, it's because of what the farming minister has described as an error. People who saved an online application without submitting it got a message on the computer screen saying, "If we need to close applications, we will give you 6 weeks' notice. Your application will be available for 2 months for you to continue." The government says that bit about the 6 weeks' notice shouldn't have been there and showed up because of a technical issue. Mr Zeichner has now apologised for the confusion it's caused, but says it will now be taken into account.
So what does it mean for those people?
Well, the government says there's about 3,000 applications that were started on or after the 12th of January this year, so within 2 months of the closure, and those applicants will now get a 6-week window to complete the form. DEFRA has said it will be in touch with those people soon to explain how that will work. There will be a few restrictions in place, including a limit, so you can only apply for up to £9,300 per year in SFI payments. Now, Mr Zeichner acknowledged that these restrictions weren't there the first time around, but explained that for him it's a bit of a balancing act between wanting to be fair to the affected people, but as he puts it, ensuring the prudent use of public money. Given that the SFI budget has already run out, this money will have to come from other areas of the DEFRA budget.
And why has this happened now then?
Well, we can't be sure what's led to this, but the NFU has told us a group of members, supported by the union, was threatening legal action, saying DEFRA had not given the proper notice period of any closure it had promised to farmers applying for the scheme. Meanwhile, the CLA, the Country Land and Business Association, says it's been lobbying government for the change and is glad it's listened, saying although it's a limited amount of money, it does take a bit of the sting out of the suddenness of the closure. It goes on, the way for DEFRA to avoid such a shock again is to be open and transparent and work with industry to design the revised scheme.
And what about everyone else?
Well, there were some special arrangements previously announced, so some small groups of people can still apply, farmers who were in the SFI pilot, for example, and they too will be contacted shortly by DEFRA. But for everyone else, the SFI does remain closed to new applications. All existing SFI agreements will be paid to farmers, but the government says this is the right moment to reset the scheme so it can target funds more effectively, it says, to meet the needs of both farmers and the environment. It says work is already well underway on a reformed SFI offer, and we're expecting more details on that to be published this summer after the spending review.
Thank you, Heather. And if you want to hear more about the twists and turns in the development of the Sustainable Farming Incentive so far and what that's meant for farmers, food and the countryside, the team have made a programme all about it, which you can find on BBC Sounds. Just search for The Landscape Revolution. That's all from us. I'm Anna Hill. The producer is Heather Simons. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.